civic affirmation. Gathered today to duly and fairly carry out our duties to the best of our judgment and ability for the advancement of this district and the benefit of all our community and fellow citizens. Also, the acknowledgement of the country. The Coorong District Council members acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land and waters, the Ngarrindjeri people whose ancestral lands are on which we meet today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationships of Aboriginal people to country and pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to our First Nation people. Right, we'll start off with apologies. We have none. Is that correct? Yes, no apologies. Now the next item is the confirmation of minutes from the meeting of the 7th of December. Someone like to move? Coleman? Move. Councillor Bland? Is there any discussion on those minutes? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. The next item is the minute action list. If on to peruse that, and has anybody got any minute action list? It's not a big list now with a lot of the actions actually going into the council minutes. I'm going to peruse through here. I have no questions regarding the action list. Right, the next one we'll go to is questions with notice. And Councillor Coleman, you had the first one. Would you like to comment on?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to say something. Whilst I appreciate the answer, it didn't quite in full reply to my question. And what I mean by the later part is, and will any minor patching be carried out in the disturbed road service in the interim? That wasn't answered.
Well, it will go to the acting CEO.
There's patching required and general maintenance required that can be done as part of our operations on a day-to-day basis. So we'll inspect that and make sure that it is in order. But as far as renewal goes, it will be needed to be programmed as a capital works for the 22-23 budget.
I'd like to say a bit more, thank you. Well, I've had some concern raised to me from the residents who live in close proximity to this defect in the road, and they're getting tired of the excessive road noise. And it was the community expectation that it would be finished in 2021. It wasn't, and I've got to ask some questions back to them. So I just would hope that we can be a bit transparent, or we're going to do something about it to ease the concerns of the local residents, Mr. Chairman.
Would you like to make any comment on that?
We'll address the issues of road noise through renewal. Patching and renewal are different things, unfortunately. So if there's excessive road noise, which is a result of the underground stormwater, that will need to be addressed as a capital project.
Well, just closing on that, Mr. Chairman, if I'm allowed, I'll have to pursue and give it all my effort to make sure it gets slotted into the new upcoming budget, correct? And hopefully get the support of other members. Thank you.
Mayor Simmons.
So, yeah, Mr. Chair, it was probably the one that we would have liked, one that just missed out in the budget last year, and we have a financial committee meeting next week, I think, from memory. And if there's considerable room in the budget, by whatever method, it may be an option to bring it in this year. That was always the discussion I had with the CEO around that project.
I think you always find there's some of these things that do come up. I know, perfect example, although, sorry, we did get 3 mils of rain and that put 5 feet of water outside the pub again. So it just doesn't flow away. And that's the trouble with some of these areas. So I'm sure Councillor Coleman, you'll have it in your wish list for.
Have wish lists anymore. Don't tell her that.
Right, back to wish list, love.
You probably need that again.
It is.
Right, Councillor Coleman, your second question, are you happy with that?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I am happy with the answer. That's what I wanted to know, but it gives me a chance to speak on it, if I may, that I've had concerns and complaints received from local residents about the status or the state of our main street concerning a lot of excess dead leaves and stuff on the curbing and on the gutters and on the footpath. And I believe we have more people on the ground now than what we used to, and previously they used to sweep it once a week. Well, I can't understand only having a street sweeper once every 6 weeks doesn't really cut it, because it should be why can't we do it manually once a week? That's my question.
Matt, what's your answer?
Come to me, Mr. Mayor, if you want, Mr. Chairman. I've had discussions with the director around this issue of the what I call our business areas and our sweeping and perhaps our frequency. And I think it's on the list of things to look at, is to look if there is a suitable, I'll call it a walk behind sweeper, that can be done quite quickly. The dilemma once again is, of course, we've got 3 different depots that would do this work. So that has been discussed behind the scenes. Director can speak if he wants to.
Yeah, through the chair. So council's current level of service, as we've spoken about, is every 6 weeks. So every road that has a curb on it is addressed every 6 weeks. Now, since that level of service was either set or adopted or budgeted for, we've developed the road management hierarchy, which looks at how we manage individual roads depending on where they sit within the road network. So going forward, we're looking to implement levels of service depending on road hierarchy. So for example, a residential street, I don't want to be flippant or rude, in the back of town might get the treatment every 6 weeks. It might even be pushed out to 8 weeks. But the roads within the central business district, so the main streets, increase, or the frequency of road sweeping would potentially come down to 1 or 2. So it's not a one size fits all operation going forward. It's as needed, keeping in mind that we do have a set budget for street sweeping within our operating budget, which means that we need to work within that, or we either increase or decrease level of service. So it's really important that we look at how we service based on need through the hierarchy.
Well, that's it, Mr. Chairman. I would say it's need to be done regularly, and it isn't done regularly. And the thing is, not only that, we used to, with high pressure pumps or firefighting equipment, used to clean out the culverts every 3 weeks and 3 months, sorry. And by not cleaning these regularly, the curbing on the main street, we have that classic example when we get a downpour, the culverts can't cope because they're full of rubbish and excessive leaves. So that's why I'm bringing up the question that it needs more regular attention, especially the main street. And I think Councillor Bain wants to say something.
Councillor Bland. Microphone.
Hit the microphone, Councillor.
Even on.
On. It's always on.
For you, Mr. Chairman, to a director who will have received an email from me just very recently with part of the same concerns in that one of the problems we have in our areas is around the fact that we have parking with protrusions, and the street sweeper cannot actually access those corners, and they are now growing weeds in many of them. They basically need someone every now and again to go along and shovel out the dirt that gets collected in there. The street sweeper certainly does a reasonable job in Meningie, but tomorrow it blows and it's done again. The main street being, in fact, the highway, probably does need a little bit more regular service in comparison to the other streets. But where there's this recessed curbing and it gets caught, and I know it happens down here at the service station, yep, and a number of other places in other towns as well. And I think that probably would go a long way to getting rid of some of the weeds and the dirt that accumulates with weed management as well.
Mayor Simmons.
So my questions are ancillary to this, and to Matt. So how often does the street sweeper machine, I presume, suck out the side entry pits?
Through you, Chair, the side entry pit should be done prior to winter and then after every major event. So it's not something that needs to be done on a regular basis, but it's again, as needs. We can incorporate that into the contract with the street sweeping supplier, as we can with the requirement corners of So in lieu of council staff doing it, who are at pretty much capacity at the moment, those small ancillary, I guess, tasks that are associated with street sweeping can be contracted as part of the street sweeping contract, which is due for renewal.
All right, so the contract is up for renewal. So it's pretty hard work for our staff to do anything in terms of side entry pit cleaning, obviously, and that the truck. Are our staff involved in lifting the lids for them or something, or showing them where they are? How does that work?
Through Chair, our GIS system would enable that to be provided as part of the tender process, which would show where our problem areas are, one, and two, where each individual pit is. That will enable us to contract that work out. Part of the work that we're doing, in particular at Meningie at the moment, is doing a mapping exercise to make sure that we have the right information about our stormwater infrastructure. So going forward, that would be part of the contract. Now, at the moment, our street sweeping operating budget is around the $50,000 mark. The level of service that provides is that 6-week frequency. So we're going to have to do some work in working out what we can deliver for that $50,000 as part of a contract and whether that needs to be increased.
Is 6 weeks sort of industry standard for it? No being it's too much, or no being it's not enough?
Not frequent enough in high traffic, high load areas. The other thing that plays a big part in street sweeping is the seasons. So if trees in the area, obviously autumn requires a greater high frequency. If there's bottle brushes, callistemons, they drop the red flowers and create a hell of a mess. They need to be cleaned up more frequently. So part of the contract can be looking at changing the frequency of street sweeping depending on the time of year.
So if I might,
Yes.
will you be ready with your plan to have a look at the high use areas versus the lower use areas by the time the contract is ready?
It'll be based on the road hierarchy, which is not 100% confirmed, but it's not far off. So it'll be the class 3, 4A, 4B, 5A, so on roads will have a different frequency as part of the contract.
Thank you.
Councillor, so I think all streets start with 5, given the principal streets in towns, I think. So, Mr. Chairman, I think we're just about there, but it just seems to be that I think the concern from ratepayers and councillors is around the main streets and the protuberances and the two poverty weeds that grow once they get a start in the corner and all that. And that's probably, whether that's the contractor or us with the machines, probably where your point needs to be in the contract, I think. And you know, the frequency in towns, it's, even if it was every third week, it's probably not enough, just in general. But anyway.
I'd just like to make a comment on that, Matt, is that the street sweeper was in Tindanara last week, or the week before, sorry, and you wouldn't know he's been there now, because we've had what a horrific winds go through, and the gums have just dropped all their leaves and twigs and that. So, you know, look, it's one of those things. It's pretty a battle that you're probably never going to win, but we're just going to try and keep on top of it. You know, like the weather, and particularly where you've got gums this time of the year, they're all dropping stuff all over the place. Right, nothing more on that. Now, next is questions without notice. Simmons.
So,
First.
yeah, I got ahead of him. That's good. So my question is, we've had a arborist do a report on the trees in our principal towns, if I remember the contract. I've started to get a fair bit of feedback, one particularly at Sherlock in recent days, but from all the little towns, is council going to trim the trees or get an arborist report on perhaps our smaller settlements along the same vein as the original report, which I might add, I thought was extremely competitively priced for the information we gave and allowed at least me to defend trimming the trees public the 2 or 3 days that they were here, the point that some people thanked us for actually doing the work finally of having an arborist. So my question is more about, is it a budget line for next year or whatever? You know, and I'm referring here to Sherlock, Peak, and some trees in Cooman, Duke, and a couple in Kai that, whether we like it or not, even though they're on the highways road reserve, tend to be our responsibility. I don't know, councillor, whether there's a Colborough, there's issues, or Narung, probably could be at Narung, but we only focused on the principal towns in that first round. So my question is, will we be considering further study or further report for those smaller towns?
Yeah, through you, Chair, the arborist report should include all council-owned land.
It did. It was limited.
We
Yep.
should include that in future works or arborist reports. Trees on road reserves should be addressed as part of a road management program, but the public space tree should be considered as part of the arborist report, absolutely.
So that's a pretty hard delineation, isn't it?
Yes.
Because, yeah, but anyway, we'll just keep that in the back of our mind because it's, people have raised it with me and I'm not quite sure. We still got a policy of removing pine trees, I call them.
Lepos,
Well, they look like a pine tree to me. I don't know what.
certainly they were all removed around Meningie as a fire issue if it's because they surrounded the town, and they're still supposedly removing some, but in some ways, Jew might look at that, or DIP, sorry, look at that if we've got lots of Aleppos. We certainly want to get rid of them.
Particularly, this is the issue at Sherlock, and there's about 6 or 8 of them.
Take that one on notice.
Taken it.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got 2 actually. The first one is, I've heard reports from a reliable source, not far away from on the right, that the Peak Township has water issues. Could someone enlighten us how that's going, please?
Peak.
Water system, town water system.
Through you, Chair, we're aware of the issues in Peak. Our staff are working with a local individual and also a person who lives in that region, who is experienced in the operation and management of bores. So it's an ongoing process. It does also involve working with Jew regarding it being a groundwater source. So it is ongoing, and we are aware of the issue. I don't have an answer on what the outcomes will be as yet.
Well, thank you.
Can I ask the question, does that mean we have no functioning, they're not functioning at all at the moment?
Through you, Chair, that it's still functioning. The quality isn't fantastic. They call it, I believe, for event. So it's an algal type bloom,
Right.
which blocks up filters and things like that. So it's still, there is water, but it is higher maintenance with things like filters and sprinkler heads, etc.
Thank you.
Councillor Coleman again.
Yeah, but sorry to bother you. Second one. Probably a bit over 12 months ago, members, or longer, we discussed at a council workshop or during council about waste management or pickup, curbside pickup, and it was discussed because we had a letter from a local resident here at Tarlan Bend regarding council considering or going to act to pick up once a year hard rubbish. What's the progress on that? Have we got something done with that? We're still thinking about it or still in the air? Thank you.
It's probably
Through-
something that
through-
was before your time.
Yeah,
mate.
through you, Chair, it was before my time. Thanks. Yeah, I'm not aware of that that process, but I'll take that on notice and provide a response.
If I remember correctly, we did do a bit of a study on it, and the cost was about $85,000. It's not just the pickup, it's the getting rid of it, of the hard waste. And I reckon that was probably 3 years ago. And it wasn't included in the budget because it was considered little bit
Beyond it.
too much money, but maybe it's something that we can look at again.
Mm.
You know, like if you're going to do it, you do it for Canalpin, Tindanara, Peak, Tailem Bend here, or is it feasible, Matt, to have at each waste station a day or where it will take the hard rubbish and then dispose of it from there where the people bring it in? There may be some alternatives. I suggest it's something we could have a look at. Yes, Mayor Simmons.
So the council is correct. It's one of the things that people talk a fair bit about and which we don't provide. But you don't have to be Einstein to know that if we did provide it, people won't to our waste depots. They'll just wait for that day. And other people will pick it over. So probably in designing something, in my view, we need to be thinking about the people who cannot, for whatever reason, be it physical or they haven't got a trailer or whatever, and how we design a system. And we wouldn't be the first council that's probably tried to design one that picks up, people that not in the position to remove plastics. And of course, the classics are mattresses probably. What's the solution there? So while city council areas, you'll see their hard rubbish day, they put them out in the streets and all that. I think given that we've effectively got waste depots quite close, probably going too far, but we need to think about how we design a system to help people who cannot, I'm using that word quite clearly, physically get stuff to the dump. Otherwise, I know Councillor Qualman will have to be asked to do it. His trailer will be the most trailer in town.
Through you, Chair, I'm aware of some services that neighbouring councils do provide on I think it might be an as needs basis or a call for service basis.
Call for service, but
Do some investigation, see if there's opportunities for us to potentially tack on or have our own standalone service. But yeah, we'll take that one on notice and provide a report back at the next meeting.
So, my view is do we restrict a service to what I'd call concession holders, which we would probably aware of rate system, but we as councillors definitely aren't. That's the design of the system, but I'd appreciate you have a look. An ongoing niggle.
Arana do some work in Murray Bridge where they collect mattresses, then they actually
Strip them.
Do what they do.
Can I just make the comment about concession holders? They're not always the only ones who have a need physically to be able to be assisted or don't have a trailer. So I'd like to see that to be, if we're looking at, it needs to be a bit broader. Concession holders, yes, but I think there are also elderly who these days are what I'm saying?
Sorry.
So I think it needs to be bigger if we're going down that track, to be fair.
Councillor Qualman.
Thank you. Just to finish off the question, from my view, and thank you to Councillor Simmons and Councillor Bland for their input, valued. Yeah, this particular person, well, they're both in their 90s and they really struggle, and they are just concerned, how do you get rid of that hard stuff? And thanks to our director for his input, that it's something we can hammer over soon and have a workshop, and because we've got to review the waste management system soon anyhow, and we can work on it, because it's no easy answer, but it's not impossible either. So thanks for the answer. Thank you.
Well, I think the biggest problem we've got to look at is where we dump it and how we get rid of it after we dump. As you know, if you take a mattress out the dump, that's what, $40, I think. If you pull it to pieces, well, it's nothing because you just send the wire out there. But I think that one of the things that this could be a perfect example for once the council's got a scheme up and going, to work in with some of the groups like the Lions Club or the Action Club or the Apex Club or Rotary, for them to piggyback along with us and help these older people out. Just a thought. Councillor Roundtree.
I was going to say, is Councillor Roundtree still with us? I haven't heard her.
Yes, she is. I think someone already mentioned it before, but I'll just reiterate, Arana do take mattresses and they put it through their sheltered workshop people, and they pull them apart and get the springs out I've actually seen them do it. It's a really good little operation. So maybe if council looks at what they can do with Arana even, could be useful.
Normally in Adelaide, when they put the hard rubbish out, there's nothing for the council to pick up. Everybody's gone past them.
Yeah, so it comes down to the definition of hard rubbish. Is it a heap of rocks or is it a working fridge or stereo? And that's the dilemma
Yes,
I think we'll face.
building rubbish versus.
Yeah, that's the trouble. Household effects.
Right, I have actually got a question without notice. Matt, what is the council's situation at the present moment regarding cooch spraying? I'll just enlighten you that the new seal that we have just done on Homestead Road has cooch grass growing through it already on the verges. So that seal is not going to last very long. So now, with a little bit, cooch grass is very, very active at the present moment. This should be a time that we get around and do all these roads. The ones I'm thinking, Coorong Road, Yamali Road, the bit out of there, Karkuma Road, Woodswell Road.
All of them.
There's heaps of them, but the cooch is fresh, and if we're not going to get rid of the cooch to start before we start resheeting, we're only creating a problem for ourselves. So, what's your answer to that?
Question? Absolutely, 100% agree that spraying of verges and the whole road maintenance, road verge maintenance process needs to be ramped up. It causes significant issues with edge breaks, as we know, which is a problem on our sealed road network, in particular roads that are now taking more freight and agricultural machinery. So process of spraying verges for cooch and other weeds absolutely needs to be ramped up. At this point in time, there is nothing in place, but it's something that we need to address as a matter of priority. So I'm not sure that answers your question.
My next question is, how high a priority is it?
Very high. Ultimately, it's a costly process, but the cost of not doing is more.
Oh, exactly. And I think the relevant answer there was the cost of not doing it is more, as we've been out and had a look at Coorong Road, where some of that edging has been done and the cooch is back through it now. So, and while that cooch is there, it's not going to last long because it'll break everything up and we're back to square one. So we've actually wasting money doing that. So I think it's a job that needs a extreme now. Now it's starting to green up and it'll take the poison down.
Yep, through Chair. I think I've spoken about this before, but we're in the process of developing an operational management plan for our entire road network, which includes control grading frequency, verge grading, verge spraying, tree trimming, line marking, etc. That's in the process of now being costed. Irrespective of that being costed, as I said, it's important that it's done because the cost of not doing it is more. Ultimately, a seal is only there to protect the pavement, in theory. It also keeps dust down. And if the seal is no longer a waterproof membrane, the pavement will fail and it'll cause ongoing issues. So absolutely needs to be done.
Okay, but we'll look for the sprayers out. Okay, anyone else, any questions without notice?
I've got a question, Mr. Chairman. You haven't introduced our new staff member yet between you.
Right, we'll go on to motions without notice. Motions with notice, all right?
I've got one.
Motions without notice.
I've got one without notice, but you mightn't have quite heard me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We have a new staff member. We haven't introduced him yet. Unless I forgot. He's sitting very politely down the back. Perhaps the director might want to.
Through you, Chair. So council's lucky enough to have a new member of staff who is come on board as a capital delivery engineer and asset engineer, Umesh Badu, who's sitting up the back. It's his second day, and we welcome him and look forward to him working with the rest of the staff to deliver positive outcomes for the Coorong community. So welcome Umesh, and Umesh is originally from Nepal, so it's good to have people from other parts of the world coming and enjoying our couch grass, our environment at Coorong. So welcome.
Now, I've got a motion without notice.
Yes.
That's where you're up to? I'll bring it up to you, Courtney, so relax. So this has been, because I suppose there's been some questions and some things. So this will be that a concept drainage curb and possible foot location plan for Trevina Road between Coorong Road and Seymour Street be prepared for the motion of this committee. So, Chairman, we had a couple of complaints about some drainage on what I would call the back fences of the majority of people at the property's front station drive, but if most of them exit by Trevina Road, and Trevina Road in that area is quite unusual, and it's actually two roads. And on the other wing of it, on I'd call the eastern wing, it goes across what is now Mawson Avenue, and has never really been constructed or curbed, or none of this has been given any curbage or drainage really. And it goes to the kindergarten, and in the middle of all of that area, we have the Lions Den, which actually is a separate title, according to all the maps, and I've got the map here. I'm not anticipating this is a concept, and the reason I think it's important that we have a bit of a concept of what we might do there is, as you know, the footpath strategy is out for public consultation. To be fair to say, I think there is a level of conjecture around where a footpath would go from St. Vinny's through this area, and I just think it would be. I'm not demanding it tomorrow. Probably the next 3 to 6 months would be more than enough time to get a rough idea of where we would put curb and water table, and that will probably drive path would best be located. That's the reason I'm proposing it. Move that way, please.
I have a seconder. Seconder, Councillor Palmer. Is there any further discussion on this, Councillor Palmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, Councillor Simmons. And I totally concur that it needs some sort of planning there. I've known, been nearly here 40 years, and it is a problem area there, and where the water has trouble dispersing, and we've got two roads that need sorting out as it is, and plus with the footpath strategy coming up, we should do something along those lines to make sure we get it right. And this is all part of the plans of also the issue that I brought up previously about the culvert system or the stormwater off from Uniting Church off of Granite Road as well. So it all ties in with that, I think, and it's a good idea. That's why I support it.
If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Now we have a second motion here from Councillor Kwong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's already written up there for everybody, but I'll read it out. Councillor Corman moves that council attached to the western fence Allen Bend playground appropriate signage that reads dog park 600 metres.
They get the wrong park.
I'll talk to her after we'll get a second.
I'll have a seconder for that motion.
A question first.
Question, yes.
Can you just remind me whether or not we have, I'm assuming then that the dogs are being used in the children's playground, loose in the children's playground?
Through the chair, it just says, it has appropriate signage that says dog-free area, but people still take their dogs in there because maybe they don't realise there's a dog park 6 metres away, but they're just in oblivious because they drop the kids off. Oh, quick, we'll take the dog for a run. But there is enough signage to warn people. But I thought wouldn't it be good that people may not know there's a dog park, and it would be just something simple just to put alongside of that dog-free area an arrow and said 600 metres dog park.
So my follow-up question is, do we have the signage about how much it costs like we do in other areas if your dog is A, in the park, or B, off a leash? Because it's a significant fine.
It's all well and good council having fines, but who actually administers them?
Surprisingly, it stops them doing that. And I agree with the signage for the dog park, but I think some other signage around what it would cost them if somebody walked across and fined one or two.
I'd just make comment. I agree with what you're saying, councillor Coleman, of putting a sign up, but these people just don't seem to worry. You see them pull up
Fine
on
them.
the oval, let their dogs run out, have a
Kids
crap,
running
and
around.
pick them up again, and there's a dog park. They go past the dog park to get it. But at least we're trying to be proactive.
Yes, that's right.
I'll second the motion.
Councillor Simmons, Mayor Simmons, sorry.
Councillor Simmons.
Fine is
They won't allow me to be called.
$750.
And it's advertised in other parks in the council area.
We'll put you on a percentage, Brent.
Yeah, well, I just, if I may, I realise we've got deterrence and everything, but sometimes people will got to, you know, written upside down or flashing lights or something. They just don't see information. And I know it looks like the main street of Las Vegas, the amount of signs down there now, but I don't think it's that hard just to have a little arrow when it says 600 metres dog park. They can't say there's no excuse because they, oh, I've got nowhere else to take my dog. So
Beautiful dog.
I've only because I've received complaints about people still taking their dogs in there. Thank you.
Then we change it for the new fence if we ever get it.
Yes, let me start again.
Yeah, I was just going to say through you, Chair, as you're aware, we are looking to replace that fence in Plinth in this financial year. So as part of that, we'll review the signage at the children's playground, and then we'll include the dog park sign 600 metres to the north or northwest.
Okay, no further discussion. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Thank you, Lisa. Carried unanimously. That is all.
No, gotta look this way.
Sorry, councillor Bean.
Thank you. And I will bring this up if you can read my writing. I would, through you, Mr. Chairman, request that council remove the reeds on the southern side of the boat ramp south of the sailing club. They're encroaching quite severely at the moment, and also remove the reeds at the swimming area on the Lions Park southern side and around that boat ramp. I'd like to speak to that. Can't read my writing, I apologise. Just so that staff or new staff in particular are aware that while the lake has always been a bit of an issue interfering with the park, when the footpath and a whole range of services were put in by DIT, they agreed that there were areas that reeds could be removed for the quiet enjoyment of the people, which was the swimming area, the area around the boat ramp at Lions Park, and also up at the sailing club. Now, some of those are encroaching, and it was pretty much time they need to be sorted. Probably comes this, if I might again, the sailing club area probably will come in line with the upgrade that is being done there, but it may be while we have machinery there that we do it all at once.
Oh, yeah.
I'll move that.
Yeah, through you, Chair, absolutely the sailing club area is incorporated into that project that is programmed for later on this financial year once summer's finished, and I know it probably could have been done before summer, which would have been more appropriate. However, it is a water affecting activity and does require appropriate licenses to occur. That application has been lodged. So what we can do is we can put an amendment to that application in as a water affecting activity. And while the contractor is in in the area doing the work associated with the sailing club area, look at other areas that are requiring attention as well.
Can I just suggest that if you projects were done then, it was agreed at that point with the department that all the quiet areas for enjoyment, that we could actually remove reeds. And I know that we have to put in the licenses, but there was a promise made that those areas would not be over reed grown.
So we've got that down. That's a motion as
I move that.
correct. Council, remove the reeds on the southern side of the boat ramp south of the sailing club and remove the reeds at the area at the Lions Park around the boat ramp.
And swimming area.
So, I haven't got a seconder for that. Oh, yes. Councillor Coleman seconded that, that's right.
Actually can't see that.
Is there any further discussion? Yes, councillor Coleman.
Thank you. I support this, and I assume this is an ongoing council responsibility and negotiations with the relevant authorities, Lord, and that we maintain these specific areas. Is that right? That's ongoing, regular maintenance by us.
That was a question I was going to ask is, what is our responsibility
Yeah.
along the foreshore, the boat ramp, do the sailing club lease part of it, or is it all our responsibility?
Yeah, because I'm not quite sure whether this is a new thing or we've been doing this anyhow. That's why I'm asking that.
Matt, this has put you on the spot, hasn't it? You'd have to
Through,
find
through-
out.
yeah, through the chair, there is still confusion regarding what is the responsibility of council and what is the responsibility of Jude being within a water course. Similar situation is occurring at Wellington, where we are seeking advice as to what we can and can't do with regards to management of reeds in particular within the water course. It is still a water affecting activity, so there is environmental, I guess, precautions that we need
Yes,
to
yeah.
put in place.
Yeah.
So we don't silt, etc. So yeah, it is an ongoing issue, and it's something that we're seeking advice on what we can and can't do and what approvals are required.
Thank you.
So in the meantime, we'll
I'll sort 'em.
put that motion. All those in favour? Councillor Coleman was the second. That's passed unanimously. Thank you, Lisa. Right, the next one is Raider Rollers.
Yeah, but we do have another meeting at 1 o'clock.
May I
Mr. Chair.
suggest before we go on, well, even before we accept the motion on this, that we have a little run through by the acting CEO.
Stop picking on me. Thank you, Chair,
Hold up now.
and yeah, the patrol grading operations is something that we've been working on for a while. Obviously, we've got 3 patrol graders running 6 days a week out of our 3 depots with 6 operators. Each of the patrol graders has a roller assigned to it. The rollers were purchased in 2017 and have, as the report states, cost a significant amount of money to render them compliant and, I guess, fit for purpose for what they were purchased to undertake. So the costs of maintaining or upgrading those rollers is in the order of $30,000 per roller. So the accumulation of all of those was somewhere in the order of 100,000, which is the approximate purchase price of 1 roller. So what we found is that the work that they're being asked to do is not equivalent to the work that they're designed to perform. In a patrol grading environment where they're required to be moved from site to site at a practical speed, it places undue stress on the machine or the rollers that we have. So that is a significant issue and has required strengthening of structural parts of the rollers. There's been significant downtime in having those rollers in operation, in particular over the last 12 to 18 months, which has impacted somewhat part of our patrol grading operations, our efficiency, and is something that is absolutely on a priority to be addressed. It's included in the 22-23 plant fleet asset management plan as renewal of those particular roles. So it's important that we also address how we perform our patrol grading activities across the district as well, and make sure that we have that correct. We're servicing our network as we should, but then also make the assessment of what our most appropriate tools and resources are so that we deliver the service to the community as they would expect, whether that be with rollers like we currently have or similar, whether that's rollers being used based on necessity, not as a standard, patrol grading frequency, a whole lot of different things that we look at to ensure that, one, we're delivering it the service efficiently, but two, that the guys who are employed by council have the right equipment to do the job.
We're in an open session, are we?
Very.
So I'll say it, the Miller rollers aren't up to the job. That's the long and the short of that debate. I understand we will, in this financial year we're in now, we've ordered and we'll get a Bruins combination roller, which is probably the standard roller in South Australia, which will go to the construction gang when it arrives, Matt?
Cool. Yep.
Either or.
So there's one of the Miller's rollers, the Tailem Bend patrol grading crew has the Bruins roller, and the construction crew currently has
One of the
Miller's
Millers
rollers behind a tractor.
on the tractor. So the point is that the moment you swap things around to be compliant with brakes, in effect, because a grader is not required to have braking pull a roller where a tractor has, as in electric over brakes, which, tell me if I'm wrong with my praise here where we're at. We've ended up in a bit of an interesting mesh up of machines that can't do the job, whether or not we need to use that roll on that job to start with, and compliance. And there's no secret, this chamber, we've had a fair bit of trouble with some of the issues around compliance and compliance plates in the last 2 years, I think, be fair to say, with water trucks and town trucks and God knows what. So, Matt, I suppose we need to address, in your view, and this is what you're saying, whether a combination roller, as in the full rubber at the front, rubber at the back and barrel in the middle, which is what we've got with the Millers, or the e-combi as it's described, and I see there further few, which is only rubber tyres on the back with a steel drum on the front, is now being used, but not used, because at the Coorong depot, I know, behind the North grader, which is probably where you may use a steel drum more than the other two sectors. Or we go back to, and on amalgamation, we had free rollers, which they're never free, of course, but they are attached to the ripper boxes of the graders. And we haven't even introduced A-frames and utes yet, so we'll just put that one aside for the moment. So the challenge is, Matt, have you got a view yet, or have we formed a view around whether a free roller can apply enough pressure to settle the roads, particularly on the South 2 graders, vis-a-vis a combination roller or even the e-combi?
I haven't got a view as such. We've been looking to try and source a free roller, either hire, trial, or use for a period of time. have a meeting on Thursday that may bring some light to that subject. My view is that there is a absolute need for rollers in the right circumstances. Having the ability to have a roller tied behind a grader is an absolute need for certain times of the year, especially when there's moisture in the ground. Other times they're not needed. So having the flexibility to run a roller, not run a roller behind a tractor with a grader, introduce a water cart to add some moisture, that flexibility is something that we really need to make sure that we have available to us, so that we can tailor our unsealed road maintenance activities depending on the time of the year and the condition of the road. So the flexibility needs to be there.
So given the fleet is potentially made up of, and we exclude the 2 rollers that stood on the depot, the rib roller and the 10-tonner, of 4 rollers in effect. Just as a side thing, are we acquiring a tractor for a lawnmower this year? So will that be capable of towing at the e-combi as well, given that what you're saying in a seasonal sense is that could tow a roller and then go on the mower in spring, late spring? That's really, you're trying to sort of nuance this a bit. So really, given you're having a meeting with the, shall we say, a reliable supplier or a reliable machine manufacturer, it may be that 1 or 2 free rollers and another e-combi might be the combination. Sometimes in use behind the graders, sometimes in use behind a tractor sometimes. Because what I've noticed, and it gets to the ring feeder debate, is the drivers are reluctant to take the roller off, and if you ever climb in and out of a grader enough times a day, it's a bastard of a business. And sometimes, in some jobs, I can see that it'd be better if the roller wasn't on the grader at all, but it was behind a tractor. Or there is a 2-man crew in effect doing some of that work. So the way I see it, assuming we get a full big combination roller this year for our road construction gang, and that we're effectively freed up next year to make some decisions. I don't know what the order timeframes are around replacing the roller fleet, because the present millers are not working. So I suppose, how long do you think before you can come to a conclusion around what combination of events you need? And I'll put the final thing in. Other ripper boxes, I be rippers are strong enough, and I'm looking at the John Deere now, to lift them anyway.
Question.
As I would have thought they should be, but that might be a secondary question we need to ask urgently around what we know about the John Deere grader, because we're in tender at the moment for a grader. So we wouldn't want to find a limitation on the fleet, because in my view, we have 4 graders, we'll have 4 or 5 rollers, we'll have a water truck and some tractors soon, we'll get the fleet somewhat back to being able to do things, but it needs to be very flexible. And I'm very interested in this report, and the thing sort of is that the e-combi is not really that much more than a free roller. That's where I call operational flexibility. So I think the e-combi is probably not a bad thing for patrol graders, because in theory they're very easy to drop off with a ring feeder, of course.
And steel drum.
Steel drum, yeah.
Councillor Roundtree, you have a question?
I do. I'm just wondering through you, Chair, whether other
Unmute.
council areas have got a similar issue to us with these rollers, or have they already?
Lisa? Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Hmm,
We are, can you hear us, Lisa?
yeah.
We can't hear you, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
We're just trying, just hang on one moment.
Can you hear me now? Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me now?
All right, yeah, that we can
Hello, can you hear me now?
Councillor Roundtree, can you hear us?
Yep.
Can you say something?
Hello, can you hear me now?
No. Still nothing, sorry.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Hello? Have you checked all my microphones? They should be working. They were working before. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yes, you can hear me. Great, excellent.
Perfect.
Whatever you did, just keep
Right,
doing.
councillor Roundtree, now we're
My
here.
question, yeah, thank you, Chair. My question
Sorry
is,
about that.
no problems. Is our council region experiencing anything different to any other council that has a large quantity of unsealed roads? What are they doing? Do they have these millers machines? So how are other people getting around these sorts of issues and making sure they can keep their unsealed roads up to scratch? Like, we surely can't be the only ones experiencing this.
Yeah, through you, Chair. My experience is that other councils do have flexible arrangements. Some councils use rollers, some councils don't. Some will have a tractor and roller follow a grader. So it's horses for courses. There's material issues, like some materials are different. There's weather differences. So areas where there's high rainfall, and once you do a patrol grade and running a steel drum or rubber tire over it, it almost looks like a brand new resheet. So there's, you've got to tailor your operations and your approach on the environment that you're working in. So while I understand that different councils, I guess my opinion that we need to tailor our operations to the roads and the materials and the weather that we I guess have.
So is that saying that most councils then all run a unique program for their council region then?
Not completely unique, but nuanced the approach depending on the different environment that you're working within.
So have you checked in with other local councils, neighbouring ours, to see what they do and how they're managing it?
I'm extremely aware of neighbouring councils' operations and how they manage unsealed roads.
Extremely aware.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we've had enough discussion on the motion. We received this report.
That's the recommendation, or
Recommendation, yes.
as per the recommendation, you want to move?
Councillor
On
Coleman, Councillor Bland. I would like to compliment Matt and his staff for putting this together. It's a very good answer to the questions that were put. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously.
Just add, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I suppose this outlines the risks of getting a wrong decision around a piece of machinery.
Yes.
To see those figures for what is a structural weakness in that design of those rollers. Now, the fascinating part is, be interesting to see how that miller goes. Now it's on the construction game beyond a tractor, and if, but nonetheless, probably a decision made in haste around buying 3 millers is, and the seminal question is, do we really need to have a roller beyond the graders in patrol grading mode at least? But given that I know we're looking at, more hissying up, for want of a better word, of roads, and therefore rollers more required, we need to be flexible in where we end up. But each of these decisions, as we've worked out around compliance, around volume of water in water trucks, or drawbars with certain compliance plates on them, or whatever's, is affecting council more than most other businesses, particularly us farmers.
Okay. Next one is spending the money. Proposed purchase for plant and equipment.
Can I just ask a question? We got any feedback yet at all around our public? Oh, year one. I might ask for a paper copy in a minute again, so I can read it in the real time. But, but, yeah. So the plant we had by now, or was there a couple of issues we were still sitting and thinking about? And we're confident that it'll all turn up by 30th of June? Is there particular items you're worried about that won't necessarily turn up by the 30th of June that?
Through you, Chair.
Like a piece of
I
string.
think there's definitely a risk with regards to grader. The lead time on them is significant. We may get lucky because there's a number of councils in the state who are looking to get a grader, and I would dare say then.
I have lost all sound. I can't hear anything in the chamber.
Nothing at all, Councillor Roundtree. Can you hear me from this one, Councillor Roundtree? We'll pause.
Pause. Pause. And we're gonna.
Agreed. I think it's much better all round if we're all in the same. You don't think that'll happen?
That is. Yeah. 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 Now, the other thing there was that for what would you have to replace that for the amount of work.
Small roller. The lengthy age of the backlog.
Yeah.
And that's something to think about.
So these based on the new, keeping them longer.
Yeah.
Do we swap vehicles around with someone that doesn't use them?
Yes, that's what's starting to, we haven't in the past.
We should do it, yeah.
Yeah. We should do it. That would get them full detail, full clean up detail on that spot.
Yeah, yeah. What about that one there? Triaxle trailer.
You see, that doesn't
What
need
is
to.
that? Well, that's right.
Can you hear us now, Councillor Roundtree?
I'm not sure if you're trying to talk to me, but I can't hear anything you're saying in the microphones.
We can hear you now, Lisa. Can you hear us? Are you online, Lisa?
Gotcha now.
Perfect. Gotcha. Okay, go ahead.
No, I've nothing to say.
Should know. Just don't know. That switches me on that door sort of deal, Is she back?
Yes, we're right.
Fantastic.
Now, the Proposed purchase for plant and equipment for the 22-23 budget.
So-
I think we just have a little bit of discussion on it. Yeah, rather. So, Councillor Coorong, would you like to start?
Yes, because I can take this mask off. Question, on the page 11, where it's got the, all the items listed, it says a bitumen sprayer. Is that, Mr. Chair, a replaceable one-off, or is this going to be used, for example, when we were trying to patch up the you purchased, because we were renting or leasing one off of Murray Bridge?
Through the chair, the bitumen sprayer is a small unit that we have ourselves, which is good for small patching. We do on occasions subcontract works to Murray Bridge spraying. They've got a jet patcher unit, which is a larger truck, which is better for doing larger areas. It's something that is in the program as based on its age, but something that potentially is not necessarily a requirement. It isn't a new machine. This list is for renewal of existing. So we've already got it. It's coming to the end of its useful life. We're looking to replace it.
Right.
So part of the consultation process with the community as well as internal staff is the bitumen sprayer a fit for purpose piece of plant? Is it something that we need? Is it something that would be better for us to use a contractor to do that particular work? Do we continue to use our neighbours' equipment and hire that from them? So the purpose of this list is not this is what we're doing, is that this is what we're going to consider as part of our 22-23 program. And this is why we're going to community consultation now. So the bitumen spray isn't a new item, and it's something that we need to consider. Is it the most appropriate piece of plant for us to maintain our sealed road network?
I think if we remember, this committee had a presentation at Sherlock a few months ago around, the costs of a jet patcher. Actually, it wasn't a flow-con. The heap of flow-cons on the Duke's Highway today down here, Cook Plains. Give it to the director to sort out the appropriate level of machinery to do the appropriate job vis-a-vis contractors in this area. At some stage, we've probably got to do it ourselves, but how much more than just patching a few potholes? It's patching a few potholes and it's a jet patcher, then it's area, and then it's a bigger contractor, and we've yet to see how our relationship with Fulton Hogan, who will be the Department of Transport's contractor in this area for another 6-7 years automatically, might evolve. So,
Councillor Bland.
sorry, Sharon.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm just wanting to know, you've got backlog. Is that are we referring to years?
In the table, yes.
So we have some that, for example, are -10.
So when you purchase an asset, you assume
Life.
a useful life. So we place, for example, the tandem trailer, we would have assumed it had a useful life of, let's say, 5 years. It's not 5 years, but let's just say, so in theory, we should, in this situation, the trailer would be 15 years old. So we should have disposed or renewed that asset 10 years ago. Now that's just a guide. It's not saying that that's must happen. This is part of the process, saying, so, if we want to, we can change our useful life of our trailers to 25 years. And then at the end of the 25 years, it'd be worth nothing. And we take it to the scrap metal yard.
Thank you. I assume that, and I am just wondering how often how often are we using the tandem trailer that we've let it go to 10 years? That it was in -10.
Yeah, so through most considered disposable item, especially domestic sized trailers. So it might be something we just continue to keep and maintain until is no longer fit for purpose and buy a new one.
So, Chairman, could I just come back to you think the only machine at risk in the current year is the grader of not achieving, so. And how do you go in the terms of things like graders and foreshadowing in the marketplace? We're going to buy one every year, or does us in adopting this today sort of help the process of foreshadowing?
So one of the things we could consider is when we order our new grader, we discuss with the successful tenderer how much for two.
Yeah, that's my point. Particularly if it's going to breach over that financial date anyway, we have a bit of leverage on them at that point, I presume. Because I think we're in a better position in terms of, I don't know any of the graders that wheels are going to fall off today at the moment, whereas over the last couple of years we've had that issue. So yeah. And just my last question, has the water truck turned up yet?
Fortunately not.
Someone driving it backwards from wherever? Or?
We're supposed to arrive before Australia Day. It hasn't arrived. So I know the manager of Capital Works is back on deck on Thursday. So blow that up when he returns.
But just, Matt, there's just these virtually come out of our forward planning.
Yeah.
And we're just talking about the trailer, you know, like you don't have to sell the trailer just because it's 5 years old.
That's right.
Say, for example, the bitumen sprayer, we don't have to sell it because it's that old, because it may, how many times a year do we actually use it? So why would we go and upgrade it when it's not used much yet? So this is only following up on what the plan has said. Plus, I think might be a few rollers in there extra.
There is rollers in there. Through your chair, so with plant and fleet, there's, I guess, 2 unit measures on when it's time for renewal. One is its age and the other is its utilisation. So if you're using a machine 8 hours a day, every day, it's going to wear out quicker. Example of the bitumen sprayer, the other one is the forklift or the depot. The utilisation is very low. So all this list is giving us a list of candidates to consider for renewal and as part of next year's program. It's no different to roads. A road, you give a useful life, a seal of 20 years, and 20 years time, in theory, it should be ready for renewal, but it might be performing perfectly well. So you don't waste money on doing the work. It's similar to the plant. We'll give this list consideration, and there might be stuff or plant items in the following year's program that we consider we need to bring forward.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, we would have made comment on this before, but I don't want to reread that plant and fleet asset management plan. This all councils got little nuances and differences. We run 3 graders and 3 patrol grader rollers, or we don't at the moment, particularly hard versus the standard. And we probably have a subgroup of machinery we don't use much at all, but we require because we're probably almost remote. So there's 2 sides to that. Refer to council's big float, our triaxle float. I saw it recently parked up. It's in sound condition, just needs a respray. What we're using it for.
But it is because have done a stock take of what we need, what we use, and have got rid of a lot of excess machinery that was sitting around doing nothing, and it's brought quite a considerable amount of money back into the council where it's just sitting there doing nothing before. Right, well, no further questions. I'd like someone to move that we accept the recommendation. Move Councillor Bland.
I'm happy to second.
Second to Councillor Roundtree. No further discussion. I'll just put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Gesundheit.
This is going to be good, this one. It's all this, mate.
Next one is the very interesting one, buildings and roads digital asset. I
tried to, I couldn't do it.
spent quite a bit of time going through this, but I find it very hard because I'm colourblind. Your
When you click
your
on
graphs and that. Very extensive report. Right, Matt, would you like to start off? Yep.
Give it to Courtney for the moment. Mr. Chair, did you download this or not?
Sorry?
That process?
Yeah.
Right, well, I think
Got some technicals. Oh, with my.
I couldn't work out. I think we need Mitch to look at mine a bit because there's a couple issues. But anyway,
Took me a while to work out, then you had to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I worked it out straight away. What did I do?
be back.
Can everyone see the screen well? Sorry. Okay. So over the past probably couple of months, we've been looking at implementing a digital asset management strategy and digital asset management plans, which enable us to have a far more flexible approach to how we manage our assets and look at different funding scenarios that enable us to, I guess, forecast the condition of our assets going forward. So we've produced 3 drafts so far: the sealed road, the unsealed road, and the buildings. So this is still a bit rough. It doesn't include any of our operating costs, only capital. So what the first one we'll look at is the sealed road plan. It talks to the first part is it shows that our asset value currently is for our sealed road network is 112 million. It splits spray seal and asphalt. Obviously, we don't have a hell of a lot of asphalt in our network. It enables us to look at the condition of our network based on various failure modes within our network. So, for example, crocodile cracking is a function of pavement failure, flushing, linear cracking, etc. is a function of the seal. Rutting is a function of the pavement, and probably the one that I look at the most. This shows our network. This is the sort of profile that you're trying to achieve. Probably not as peaked in that condition 2 with regards to rutting. You'd like a flatter curve. So what this shows to me is that a hell of a lot of our condition with regards to rutting, so our pavement condition, is sitting at level 2, heading towards level 3. I think previously we've provided some information to the chamber regarding the sealed road condition. What this indicates to me is that our network is all moving to level 3, 4, or 5 at once. So there's potentially in the future a peak of capital expenditure that will hit us fund the renewal of our sealed road network and spread the load over a period of years, rather than they used to call it, once asset management first became a sexy thing to talk about in councils. The renewal tsunami is coming towards us, so we need to try and prepare ourselves for that. So this is just an indication of our capital spend. It's on the right-hand side of the screen, what it's likely to be over a 10-year period. So sealed road, 11.5 million over a 10-year period, so 1 and a bit million a year, which is about what we're spending. So it shows that our sealed road network is in reasonable order from a seal and pavement point of view. There is obviously some areas of our network that are not in reasonable order, and we're reminded of them every day. So it's important we look at this as a network whole. This page in particular as a network from a network point of view.
Does this split, sorry, Mr. Chairman, split town streets versus rural sealed roads, or?
Yeah. So, and this is the high level summary, this one. Yeah. So if we go moving forward, we start to get the opportunity to, so this starts to talk about our percentage of what type of road forms up network. So for example, a high majority of our network is considered a 4A. in our sealed road space. And that's roads like Tarragott Well Road,
Woodswell,
Woodswell Road, those
All those.
longer rural roads make up a fair
the
proportion.
Rung Road would be 4A.
Yep, absolutely, a fair proportion of a network. Again, it splits the asphalt. So we're 1.8, or just over $108 million worth of sealed road and 4.2 million worth of asphalt road. 815 road segments. So we look at each individual road segment in isolation.
Is a segment normally a kilometre or what is it?
Roughly a kilometre or this is the one that I really like. This is my favourite slide. So this is a
One I had my.
this
It's
is
quite effective, isn't it?
So based on our current spend, so based on our current budget, this is what our road network looks like now. Say this is on road, show that, you know, it's looking slightly distressed. Sorry, Old Dukes Highway, slightly distressed, which we know, seeing the mayor lives on that road, we won't be doing anything. And this is year one, or year zero. So this is the current state. As we move along, the year 5 or 6, it shows that the condition of our network is slowly starting to deteriorate. So that indicates to me that maybe our renewal spend is not quite where it needs to be. Right. Once we get to year 10, it's again more yellow. Higher proportion of our road network is in condition 3. So that's showing me that our backlog, so over at the year, if we continue to spend what our current renewal, and keep in mind, this is just a draft, these figures aren't exactly right. So for the people, isn't something that we're going to hang our hat on straight away. This is just the first cut at this. Our backlog would have grown to $870,000. So it's showing that we're potentially slightly under spending on our renewal of our sealed road network.
Mr. Chairman, so the thing I noticed about that is Councillor Bland's kindly given me the rundown is that that's the middle section of cold and wet's the one we're at most at risk of. It was quite interesting because that's probably been down 30 years, I would say, but there's the middle section.
Information is based
Out
on
through
the sealed road condition assessment that was completed late last year.
the googly look a wagon, I call it. Yeah.
So we can also split it back down to road types. So 4A we knew was our most prevalent road in our district. So we can split it down to class 2. I believe Coldie Road's only class 2 road. So that splits up our network conditions. So for example, this segment up here is looking like that's something that was going to need renewal in the near future.
While we're on that, Mr. Chairman, the 1.5K section we share with the rural city of Murray Bridge, and I'm sure the director's aware of it, do we manage that or who manages that?
That is actually part of rural city of Murray Bridge's network. So at the end of Orland Road, Coldie Road stops being Coorong's, becomes a small section of Murray Bridge, which is the kilometre, the extension of Orland Road. And then from Orland, that, once you take the bend, it becomes
On that 100 line, my memory, and I'm going back 20 something years now, is that we had, you know, an agreement like we do with our adjoining councils around boundary roads that I thought we might have assumed control of that 1.5 kilometres. Can't you hand it back? Or we could take it to
Not
us.
ours. It's definitely not ours.
I just wondered because, yeah, someone asked me, I said, well, I thought we effectively, because it's half ours, in a technical sense, legal sense.
I don't believe boundary is the southern road reserve boundary of the road reserve. So that particular section of road is in its entirety the rural city of Murray Bridge.
Was that widened as part of the other process or
The
not?
shoulders were, yes.
The shoulders were they? All right, yeah. That's only the Coorong East Murray section that doesn't technically meet the classification at the moment on Coorong Road, yeah.
So this is from a network management point of view, it gives a viewer pictorial or a graphical representation of how the network's performing. We can look at a unconstrained budget. We're also looking at, so that's basically saying we will fix the road when it needs fixing and irrespective of the cost. We know that's not ever going to happen. Well, may one day, but making sure that it's a testing mechanism to see when particular sections of road are going to come on board. We're also going to look at several other options, one being aiming for a particular condition rating or aiming or spending what our theoretical depreciation on our road network is and see how that. So that's the sealed road.
In an unrestrained environment, how much percentage difference to?
In our sealed road network, not a lot.
So the principal point to come out of this is that the council's current allocation of money to sealed road maintenance is not far from being appropriate. But we wouldn't want to back off for a year or two thinking we can get away with it. That's because of that little rise or that lump in the process.
If we continue to manage our unsealed road network as is and seal a few of our unsealed roads through potential external funding, I think our current level of funding is about where it needs to be. We may need to up it a little bit, but not significantly.
Yeah, but as I'm sure the chair of the committee would remind me, as we seal, as we aim to seal certain roads, they obviously are our busiest roads. And so in theory, we can pull back a little bit somewhere from patrol grading and associated maintenance on the other side of the coin. But it would seem to me if we were to seal over the next 20 years, 50, 60 kilometres of seal, if we were to be in such a lucky position, that might be a realistic limit where amount of money required for patrol grading is probably the same as the amount of money required for reseal. That's a fair summation of where we're at. Because from a ratepayer point of view, they've always had the view to me that a sealed road is cheaper to maintain. And perhaps I've been in this local government business for too long, but that's just not the fact at the end of the day.
Our whole of life cost.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, I might, Mr. Chairman, and that is around data in, quality data information out. How is that working with this program?
So the data that this is drawing from is the exact same data that runs our asset management system. So this is produced in conjunction with our asset management package providers. So this is directly from Ascetic. So we work with Ascetic on collecting the data with regards to condition assessments that then goes into the Ascetic, they call it My Data, which is a database on all the road segments. They use that data to model performance across the network, and then that information is directly put into this platform here.
So my follow-up question on that is, so Ascetic do a condition asset every how many years?
Every 3 to 4 years.
3 to 4 years, and all of the other data is input by our staff?
No, most majority is inputted through Ascetic, and then we do a sanity check on it.
Okay. Well, checking. Thank you.
So part of it is then also making sure that out of this information, we don't just say we're going to do that road because it says it in the computer says so.
Yeah.
We will make sure that it's correct and the treatment that it's advising us to do is makes sense. We'll quickly move on. This slide enables. It's a bit more of a snapshot. I might just gloss over this one because it's pretty technical and it probably doesn't give us enough information. Same with that one, that's not working. This is the one that enables us to compare different scenarios. So one on the left is our current budget, one on the right is unconstrained budget. We can look at SCI, which is Surface Condition Index. So basically, the more green, the better. And if we go to cutting, so that shows that based on our current level of funding, at about year 2028, our pavements are going to start to fail. And it becomes more yellow. So that's showing me, this looks like the wave coming towards us. So we need to make sure that we continue to address our sealed road network to ensure that we can not, or make sure that the orange, red,
And my broad question is, if we were to, over the next 5 years, given that prediction, put additional 20% into sealed road maintenance, do we not get the tsunami, or is it?
yes, correct. Because in 3 or 4 years' time, because our sealed road maintenance is increased, a condition assessment of our network would have been redone and it'll reset. So we might find
Yep.
that in theory, this is what it looks like, but as we continually upgrade and maintain our roads, that 2028 in 4 years' time, that profile goes out to 2032. So that tsunami is actually, we're pushing it out in front of us for 5, 10, 15 years in front of us. We never actually get to it because we're continually maintaining our road.
So this is my broadest sort of question. Given we know we've got one road which is unsatisfactory in our sealed network, but given the rest of them with the appropriate or reseal, we should better hold the sub-base condition pretty right.
Our pavements are pretty good. We've got really inert soils. We've got good material. We haven't got high rainfall. Our biggest issue with our unsealed road network is what we spoke about before, is our verge management, making sure we've got adequate shoulder protection, making sure that we're not having vegetation growing into the seal, protecting those shoulders and making sure that the edge of the road is protected. Other than that, there's going to be localized failures here and there, but most of our issues with our sealed road network is shoulders.
Does that, within your system here, does that show up as a weakness?
It does, but it's not clear. And that's one of the things, if you look at the defect criteria.
Yeah.
There's nothing in there that talks about edge breaks.
Well, I didn't know what
So
it was.
that's something that needs to be addressed as part of our condition criteria, which hasn't been done before. So we need to look at the performance of our seal. So what this enables us to then do is look at treatment profile. So as an example here, in year 2023, spray seal major patching is the majority of our works program. So in 2027, it's rehabilitate and spray seal. So when I talk about rehabilitate, is some localized defects and a reseal. So it gives us an indication of what type of treatments we're going to have to apply, which then, now we're going to change this so this doesn't say the asset number, but it's going to say the road name rather than the asset number. So basically what this is saying is this is the condition profile of the road as years go out. So these particular list here, everything's in reasonably good condition. Final slide gives us a work breakdown. So this is in theory, next year, our works program needs to be $1.2 million. We're going to have approximately $30,000 worth of asphalt work, $440,000 worth of spray seal, rehabilitate and spray seal, $8,000 worth of spray seal, which is good because what that's showing, Councillor Roundtree.
With all this information, it's very, very good. If we do a community vision plan, and because I gather this is all done based on our current level of traffic and usage, if we increase the towns, we increase getting people to come out here and work, that would obviously start to change what all this looks like too, wouldn't it? So this is based purely on today's level of action.
Absolutely. So what drives this is the existing road hierarchy. So that's the type of road, for example, let's say, an example, let's say 10,000 people move to Coorong, whatever reason. All of a sudden, Coorong Road and Poltallic Road aren't a 4A, they become a 3 or a 2. So that will trigger treatments before anything that's below them in the hierarchy. So it enables, the change in road profile to bring it up in the priority list, if you will. If that makes
So
sense.
as we go through council, and say 10,000 people did move to Coorong and all the, obviously we've got a new base of ratepayers, you would automatically start to adjust these roads based on the number of people living there.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
So that's the sealed road network. Do you want to bring up the unsealed road courts?
Matt, this is not your capital works?
Yes, this is the capital works.
Right.
So that list, that 1.2 million is basically saying we should be spending 1.2 million on a sealed road network on average, pretty much every year.
Every year, yep.
Which is about what we're spending. We're about 1.1. So to me, that's showing that we're in a pretty good space. Unsealed road network, exactly the same. It does show that our spend needs to grow with regards to so we're currently spending about 2.2 million on our unsealed road renewal. In 10 years' time, it's up towards 2.7. Keeping in mind that savings that we may achieve in improving our patrol grading and the unsealed road maintenance processes, that saving in the operating space potentially can be transferred into the capital renewal space. So the net cash, I guess, that we're spending in council is no different from an income point of view. It's just spent in different areas.
There are a list of service criteria somewhere. I mean, OSI.
Yes.
So
OSI is a combination of crossfall, gravel depth, potholes, and rideability. So the combination of all of those. So when you drive the road, if it's dead flat, has no crossfall. If there's no gravel left, you can see the dirt from beneath coming through, has no gravel, so gravel depth. There's potholes everywhere, and then there's rideability, so corrugations. So the combination of them together gives what your overall condition index is.
So one of the most fascinating parts of material we always use in this district is it doesn't really, I don't know how it's not gravel in the traditional sense. So in that respect, we're a bit lucky.
Our materials hold together really well, except when there's a really localized failure. And what generally happens is a stone will pluck out of a really quite tight rubble seal. Tire pressure will punch water into that hole and it becomes a pothole. Everything else around the pothole is fine, except for that particular localized failure. So with regards to our condition, this is more our unsealed road condition. This is more of what you'd like to see. You'd rather the yellow, everything moving to the right, but it's more of a bell-shaped curve, if you will. So that's the overall stand.
So you believe in the unsealed network, we're not in bad order either.
Too bad. There's like anything, we've got 1,500 kilometres of unsealed road. If we've got 100 kilometres of poor condition road,
That's
as
all
a
we'll hear about.
percentage of the
Yeah.
network, that is reasonable.
Yeah.
From a network point of view, the key is making sure that 100 kilometres of poor road is on the most important roads or the most heavily used roads. So you're always going to have roads that are in poor condition. We can't have every road at a condition 1, 2, or 3. There's always going to be poor roads. It's just making sure that the risks are managed through, road maintenance and making sure that, it's managed through the hierarchy.
So we've got 1,500 of unsealed, which is rural. We've got what, 350 of sealed, or 500 of which 400 of that 500 will be outside of town? Is that roughly 100 in town?
So unsealed road network is valued about 214 million, so nearly twice what our sealed road network's worth. Again, high majority of our network is sitting in the 4B and 5A category for unsealed network. Councillor Arthur, you'll be happy to know that Tintinara has the highest value roads in the district.
I need to review that process, don't I? This is a broad statement, Mr. Chair. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a broad statement. We're probably lucky that as a council, if you look at our being the biggest in the state, we don't have the most road length. If you look at some councils, they have enormous road lengths vis-a-vis us. And so at least our network's not as extensive as others for probably as a matter of history, I think, probably as much as anything. And we obviously don't really have much demand to build new roads for rural areas at all. In fact, we'd probably be pulling back. It's probably a reasonable outcome, given that and given our material to be the expectation for people is to be able to travel at 100 kilometres an hour on an unsealed road in this district. That's and pass a truck still. That's a general expectation that not many other rural councils actually could stand to.
The key thing to that is making sure that the roads where trucks need to travel 100 kilometres an hour are suitable for that purpose.
That's right. They don't need to. They need to be able to have access.
This is the same slide. Road. So a current performance is, you know, it's sort of the whole network is sitting at about that 2 to 3, so 2.5, which to me triggers an issue. So it's showing that again, our network is all going to reach 4 or 5 if we don't address our renewal backlog. We go to year 10 based on our current budget. That's what our network will look like.
Yeah.
Scary. So these need to be tested, but if I turn off.
So that's based on what, a 25-year asset life or?
So I guess the only
It's not
saving
realistic
grace
anymore.
is that if I turn only on the level 3 and level 4A roads. So our level 4As are all in reasonable condition, except for the Darraball Road. So that's to me saying that should be on a resheeting program pretty soon.
That will come down to the quality of the material in that road. I guarantee you, over my entire life on councils, that one's been an interesting one from a material point of view.
So that's an interesting, to me, that when I first saw that, I thought that's like looking after, and this is part of the test of the system, is that saying, well, if a road is reaching the end of its useful life or based on condition, the system will prioritise the higher hierarchy roads before the lower hierarchy roads. As you go down the hierarchy chain, things start to change.
Where did you go to?
So, and there's hardly any 5C and 5D. So, to me, what this is showing, if we look at this part of the, over the period of the plan, our backlog is significant. So, after 10 years, a significant proportion of our unsealed road.
So if we were to change the period of a 25-year asset life to a 35, that's where I think this is a debate I'm sure elected members in this chambers of this council, the old three, have had. This is where, for whatever reason, in my view, reasonable amount of patrol grading holds the asset. That doesn't necessarily work within the model, I know, but for whatever reason, the moment we back off patrol grading, we find out that the asset collapses. And I don't know if there's a really good technical answer for that, but it tends to work out. So I'll be fascinated to see the model where the average, particularly on say 4Bs and below, if we maintain the patrol grading at say 4 a year, and it took the asset life to 35 years, how that plays out. And I'm actually really happy now to see the model, how you can adjust it.
That's the beauty of this, is that you can sit here and you can play with those scenarios and look at, well, if we do, like we're going to change, like you said, change our useful lives on particular assets, bring them in, push them out, change our patrol grading frequency, increase our patching. So not just patrol grading, it's patrol grading, patching, and if there's roads that are, say, highly potholed, but there's still plenty of material on them, let's rip them and relay them.
And that's a Ladara bore scenario, or perhaps the light stabilizer in that one.
One of the scenarios that we'll run on this is you'll see up here the condition rating of our network after 10 years will be sort of 3 over 3.2. That's probably not good enough. You don't want any more than, you don't want an average, probably 2.5 is probably pushing it, probably 2.25 to 2. So part of the scenario will be, let's drive for a 10-year outcome of having a condition rating of 2.25, and then it'll start to look at, it'll increase the spend in the lower hierarchy space because it's already, the system is already being forced to look after high hierarchy roads, the 2s, the 3s and the 4As.
Can I just add, Mr. Chair, talking to other mayors when we went to Canberra, we're in a reasonable space compared to lots of other, particularly New South Wales shires, who have got enormous backlogs. They just accept they cannot maintain their road network. It's quite fascinating. They just cannot. They just admit it straight up. Like they've probably got half cannot do. So while we may be pretty hard on ourselves, we need to be, perhaps we probably need to look at it in the bigger picture someday. Probably fortunate we've got no bridges. Yeah, we've probably got some fortunate things about our area. But yeah, so if we look at it in that context, it's not so bad.
So this one frightened me slightly. So something that we need to test. But the scenario we ran was to maintain a overall condition index of 2.5 for the 10-year. It showed that our spend is a little bit more. It drops off, but it's significantly higher than if we were just going to run at our current budget. So our current budget is increasing sort of by CPI value. So in 10 years' time, it'll be sort of 2.6, whereas driving a condition index of.
My eyes are good enough to see that.
So it's important that we develop a strategy to manage our unsealed road network to avoid having to spend that type of dollars on our system.
Can you run the model and exclude say, Coorong as if we were to seal all them in the next 5 years flat or something?
Because they're our, but if we excluded, the ones we looked at is exclude our unsealed class sort of 3 roads. So the Heinrich, Yamali, the top end of Coorong, and a couple of others, and see how that changes the profile and spend. So if we make the assumption that the upgrade of those roads will be paid for by funding from an external party, and that costs council nothing. So you exclude them from the network, how much that changes and how much that draws from our our renewal or a capital program. As an example, Coorong Road and a couple of other unsealed roads draw heavily on our unsealed road maintenance because of how much they use, and it's just a lot on Coorong Road, and people have to get to it, and trucks have to get to it. So we've got a maintenance burden because of the nature of what industries we have in our region, which in theory is a good thing because it actually highlights what is happening within our region and what infrastructure we need as a council to support that. But it also then enables us to drive the business cases. Federal government or state government, we need support in that space. So and that's we can say we're spending X dollars a year on maintaining this road to support this this business. There's your business case to go to the federal government or state government and say.
Yeah. So did you do that model? Did you run? Yeah.
But we can exclude them. Look at the hierarchy. Yeah, no. Yeah, we won't do the building one. We can click and take out the 3s and 4As if we wanted to. So
Don't scare me now.
3 and 4As.
3s, 4As, and the 5s. So that's where we're at with this system at the moment. we want to make sure, we want to have this one, sealed road, the unsealed road, and the buildings one knocked off. And the key, I really want to try and get it to the February council meeting if we can, even if it's another workshop with the rest of the elected members, but we'll see how that plays out.
If you think that the buildings hold any risks for us at the moment?
The good thing about buildings is they're pretty inert.
Yeah.
They don't fail, or they don't, you know, the only thing that fails building like a road is the carpet. It gets traffic. Everything else is something that is,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's
You can predict its life quite accurately.
yes, yeah.
Barring a
So,
major.
so I think and the good thing about buildings too is you can look at aesthetics, you can look at historical value, you can look at how much it returns with regards to lease payments and whatnot, and you can pick and choose how you renew buildings, because some are highly used, some are not. So you can really tailor your approach to buildings renewal a lot more than you can to roads.
Matt, I had a look at the buildings list. Is that complete? Thank heavens for that.
Buildings is probably
Thank
the
you.
one that's in its, I guess, most draft form.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment before we go to a vote. I've actually worked out how to work out this and do readjustments. I'm quite impressed. And you can actually sit down and do modelling, make predictions and change around and look ahead in the future. It's, I think it's a very important thing that we have incorporated in our system, that we've got a hands-on and we can see how things are floating along. It's like a live amount of information coming all the time. We have sustainability and maintaining our assets. Well done. Thank you.
Okay, now I'll call for someone to move
move it.
this recommendation. Councillor Plowman, seconded Councillor Roundtree. I think one of the things that this shows too, that I think in our forward long-term financial plan, we're $600,000 underspent on our Unsealed road, and this actually shows the problems that we could be in if we maintain that that basis. So I'll call all those in favour. Carried unanimously. And a great report, man.
Just a question
further
through you,
business?
Mr. Chairman. When we
yes.
go to the full committee of council, how will we have this sort of level of explanation again for the rest of the committee, or how will it be presented?
Yeah, through the chair, I think we'll probably present it at a workshop first.
Okay.
And then have I guess, because what will come with this is a revised, I guess, asset management policy, an overarching asset management strategy, and then the appended digital asset management plans. So it'll be a 3-tier process, and we'll roll that out from a workshop, and then the plan and strategy will go to council for community consultation. And then once the community consultation and feedback comes back, it'll come to council for endorsement. The plan is to have that all done by the end of the financial year, assuming that it all happens, and then we can use that information to develop our future budgets.
Matt, can
Great.
I ask, sorry, can I ask a further question? And that I was just having a look at the digital asset, Capital Works note, came across the CFS Shared Youth Centre, and it's got $44,000 against it. How old is this data? Because I can't remember a cent being spent for quite a while.
Sorry, I didn't. Is that
Sorry, I was looking at the digital asset, yes, dashboard,
yeah?
and it's got former CFS Shared Youth Centre, and it's got annual.
I'm down here at Tullinghan.
Menengi one.
I'm assuming that's Menengi if it's got
Menengi one.
the CFS Youth Centre.
Oh, okay, yes,
That
yes.
sign's just about fallen down. We haven't spent money on that in a long time. So how old is this data?
That value would be what the land and the building's worth.
Okay, because it talks about hydraulic renewal and roof repair.
Yep, so that would be what it would
24,000.
cost if we chose to upgrade that building and renew it back to what its
Right.
service
It's-
potential would be. That's what it would cost us to do it.
That's actually cheaper than we've been quoted forever. I think about 4 years ago, they said 80,000.
Oh, yeah, councillor.
Always got ideas, Mr. Mayor. I don't want one.
Okay, if there's nothing more, I thank you for your attendance and close the meeting. Thank you.